Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. So good evening, namaste, and welcome to our Tuesday evening reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Our reader is Hyma Naidu. We're really still just at the very beginning of this remarkable spiritual document, which is the testimony of M, the Master's instrument, about what the Master said and did over a period of a few years, from 1882 to 1886. So there may be some comments or questions left from previous sessions of this or another class or talk. If there is, please feel free to bring them forward. You'd be most happy to talk about anything that you would like to mention from your own wisdom or experience, or any comment or question you'd like to make. All right, dear. Then we'll ask Hyma to let us know where we are in the book.
Okay, Brother Shankara. Good evening and namaste, everybody. We are on page 145 on PDF. So book may be slightly different, a couple of pages backwards or forward. It's I'm going to start at why so much controversy about God. That's just one paragraph before where we left off. It's Brahmo devotee asks, Sir, why are there so many different opinions about the nature of God? Some say that God has form, while others say that he is formless. Again, those who speak of God with form tell us about his different forms. Why all this controversy? Master answers, a devotee thinks of God as he sees him. In reality, there is no confusion about God. God explains all this to the devotee if the devotee only realizes him somehow. You haven't set your foot in that direction. How can you expect to know all about God? Next, parable of chameleon. Is that chameleon or chameleon?
Chameleon.
Chameleon. Okay, thanks, Brother Shankara. Parable of the chameleon. Listen to a story. Once a man entered a wood and saw a small animal on a tree. He came back and told another man that he had seen a creature of a beautiful red color on a certain tree. The second man replied, When I went into the wood, I also saw that animal. But why do you call it red? It's green.
Mm-hmm.
Another man who was present contradicted them both and insisted that it was yellow. Presently, others arrived and contended that it was gray, violet, blue, and so forth and so on. At last, they started quarreling among themselves. To settle the dispute, they all went to the tree. They saw a man sitting under it. On being asked, he replied, "Yes, I live under this tree. I know the animal very well. All your descriptions are true. Sometimes it appears red, sometimes yellow, and at other times blue, violet, gray, and so forth. It is a chameleon. And sometimes it has no color at all. Now it has a color, and now it has none. In like manner, one who constantly thinks of God can know his real nature. He alone knows that God reveals himself to seekers in various forms and aspects. God has attributes. Then again, he has none. Only the man who lives under the tree knows that the chameleon can appear in various colors, and he knows further that the animal at times has no color at all. It is the others who suffer from the agony of futile argument.
Notice the words. The
Yes.
master does not speak idly. The agony of futile argument. When we insist on our opinion, that it is the right opinion and no other opinion is auspicious or acceptable, we create agony for others who may, if they believe in us, they may question themselves. But certainly we create agony for ourselves because we separate ourselves from other human beings for a start, and from the other living creatures of the world. But we separate ourselves from God. So it's best not to insist on your opinions and engage in the futile arguments about whose opinion is correct. Because as Sri Ramakrishna said, when you come into the neighborhood of God, then all these controversies, all these different opinions resolve themselves. You see, oh, the chameleon can be all of those colors or no color at all. So, very important parable, the parable of the chameleon. Anything else from anyone while we're stopped? All right, dear, please read on.
Okay. Kabir used to say, "The formless absolute is my father, and God with form is my mother." God reveals himself in the form which his devotee loves most. His love for the devotee knows no bounds. It is written in the Purana that God assumed the form of Rama for his heroic devotee Hanuman. Next is topic, Vedantic non-dualism.
Please read that again.
I will.
About Rama. Just this last little bit about Rama.
Okay.
Why did he take form?
Okay. It's written in the Purana that God assumed the form of Rama for his heroic devotee Hanuman.
And this is such an important idea. It is one that Sri Ramakrishna underlines. God assumes form for the benefit of the devotee. God's essential nature is formless, absolute, infinite, changeless. All of these neti words, not this, not that. But due to the love of the devotee, this cooling influence of the love of the devotee, the ocean of consciousness takes what Sri Ramakrishna refers to, though not by this name, but he refers to these blocks of ice that form in the ocean of consciousness. These blocks of ice are the incarnations of that aspect of divinity we call Vishnu. And so, and he says, with the dawn of knowledge, these forms melt away again. And there's the knowledge is the knowledge that comes with knowledge of the Atman or Samadhi. So this is what is meant by all of that. Anything else from anyone? Okay, so Hanuman wanted a form of the Lord to serve, and so Rama came to serve in order that Hanuman might serve him in the destruction of Ravana, this great demon king that was tyrannizing a portion of the world at that time. Very clear that as we too wish for some aspect of God to materialize in order that we might worship it, that we might serve it, that will happen for us as well. This is not isolated to Hanuman. Hanuman is one of us. Rama is an incarnation, this special class of being that comes directly from the divine. We come more indirectly from the divine. And Hanuman had that aspect as well. Anything else? It's a key for us to keep in mind that Rama incarnated in order that Hanuman and his fellow beings, the so-called tribes of monkeys and bears and so on, they weren't monkeys and bears, they were just earlier forms of hominids. But in any event, so that they would be there, so that there would be someone for them to serve. Okay, please read on.
Yeah. Now Swami talks about Vedantic non-dualism. The forms and aspects of God disappear when one discriminates in accordance with the Vedanta philosophy. The ultimate conclusion of such discrimination is that Brahman alone is real and this world of names and forms illusory. It is possible for a man to see the forms of God or to think of him as a person only so long as he is conscious and that he is a devotee. From the standpoint of discrimination, this ego of a devotee keeps him a little away from God. I'll read this one more time, Brother Shankara. The forms and aspects of God disappear when one discriminates in accordance with the Vedanta philosophy. The ultimate conclusion of such discrimination is that Brahman alone is real and this world of names and forms illusory. It is possible for a man to see the forms of God or to think of him as a person only as long as he is conscious that he is a devotee. From the standpoint of discrimination, this ego of a devotee keeps him a little away from God. Do you know why? Go ahead, Brother Shankara.
Hanuman
Yes.
was once asked by Rama, Hanuman, how do you see me? And so Hanuman thought of it and then said, when I'm in my ordinary frame of everyday consciousness, I think of myself as you as the master, and I am thy servant. When I sit for meditation, I see that you are the whole, and I am a part. I am a part of one whole, of which you are the whole, and I am one part. Still, this little sense of separation, as if you have a pie and you slice a slice out of the pie, but don't take it out of the pie pan. There's just this narrow little division between where the pie is sliced on each side and the rest of the pie. This is that separation that Hanuman is pointing to. When he says, when by your grace I go into samadhi, I see that I am thee and thou art I. The same thing that Meister Eckhart was pointing to when he said, the eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. So these are the three. This is dualism, qualified non-dualism, and Advaita or non-dualism. So this is it's important for us to keep this in mind, because we share those states of being with Hanuman as we do our spiritual practice. In our everyday consciousness, Sri Ramakrishna recommends that we think of ourselves as the servant or child of God. This is the Dasya Bhava. Then when we go into meditation, we get this sense of there being the witness being, the Atman, and we are that witness being. But the witness has just that little bit of separation. It is witnessing this movie that is taking place in front of it. When we go into the highest form of our spiritual expression, our spiritual experience, we forget all about time, space, causation, our body. We'll even stop breathing for a time. And so then at that point, there is no separation. We don't, there's nothing to recognize any separation. It is a form of samadhi. So any comments or questions about any of that?
You know, it's weird. It's because I was thinking about this today, you know, about that isness, that I is the one thing that never changes. And when you think about that, all the other consciousnesses or every other thing has that same I am, that same I. And that is literally God, but yet, you know, how hard it is for us to actually realize that I am is that.
Yes.
Even though it's universal.
And though it is continuous and is the underlying truth of everything, the distractions of Maya are quite deliberately created to keep us from living in that consciousness. So we must overcome the distractions of Maya, the distractions of time, space, and causation, and so that then we can live more or less continuously in the consciousness that you just mentioned. Yes, indeed. That I-ness, isness, is continuous. And yet our experience of it is not. Very well said, as always.
Yes, when you realize their eye is the same as your eye. It's the
Mhm.
same, it's the same eye.
Mhm. The eye with which God sees you is the same eye with which you see God. That's what Meister Eckhart said.
I think
When,
that's
when you make that thought a part of your daily prayer, it's transformative.
I
Yes.
think that's why probably Brother Shankara, when we are meditating, first we start with the image of our choice, ideal uh, God, whoever we are, and then slowly it disappears.
Mhm.
While we start meditating, only we feel the space. Then suddenly we wake up and realize, what happened to my image? And then we pull back, but still it's in your heart. It sets in the heart, I think. That's what I have been realizing a lot more as you do more and more meditation. The
All name and form disappear.
name and form disappears, and then you're still doing it, and you
Mhm.
we are one.
Isn't it amazing? So then
It,
you have to ask yourself, what
it
is
is.
doing this?
What happened? What happened? You question yourself. What happened? I started with my chosen ideal. Where's my chosen ideal now? I know it's in the heart, and I know we are one, but still I am the servant, he is the Lord. So
Well,
that's what I tell myself. I am the servant, he is the
Swami
master.
Prabhupada said,
Mhm.
is the chosen ideal is you yourself.
That's right. That's
Different.
right.
Learn to feel that living presence.
Living presence.
The chosen ideal is you yourself. Learn to feel that living presence. And
Yes.
that's exactly what Bhagavan Das was pointing to,
Yes.
and which you were pointing to also.
Mhm.
When
You
when everything else goes away, what are we left with?
Just
That
only
living presence.
oneness.
And
This is
yet
not
there's
exactly the same subject, but I'll tell you just a weird example is I was listening to some Anushka Shankar and I was, it's like a long raga and I was just listening and listening and really became absorbed into it. And when I came back out absorbed, it was Ravi Shankar.
That's our father.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, you've changed mask. And
Oh,
I just rolled on, and it's like when you get to where you see it that way, it's, you realize it's just different mask on the Godhead.
yes. Well said. The eternal teacher has all of these masks. Some of them are fellow human beings, and which evolve into saints, and some of them who are born as saints, the ever free souls, the Vivekanandas, and so on. All right. Anything else from anyone?
I think when we lose that name and form in that state of samadhi, that also reminds me what Buddha called the emptiness, shunyata, where you lose yourself and there is nothing in your mind.
Yes, because there's no mind to perceive it with.
Yeah.
That shunyata, that emptiness, that void. There's no perceiver. So without the perceiver, there can be no perception. There's no perceived. So you're right that exactly it's pointing toward the same thing. Although there are distinctions, and I once got a half-hour lecture from the head of the Buddhist Association in Los Angeles about the difference between that shunyata as spoken of by the Buddha and the void as spoken of by Adi Shankaracharya. I didn't understand most of it, of course. It was a long time ago, and the man was very esoteric. But nevertheless, you point to a home truth.
And I was also, a couple of months back, I was reading Kundalini Tantra, and I think that Sahasrara, once you reach that, that also is that oneness where you lose everything. And then I think that in my understanding, that Nirvikal Samadhi, that reaching that Sahasrara chakra in Kundalini, and this Shunyata, they all are same. That's how I understood.
Well, we can say that. That's a good opinion, but certainly we can't say it from knowledge. Only one who's been to that state of being and returned, which is a rare one. Most people, having attained that state of being, do not return. They drop the body. But in a logical or a theoretical or formulaic sense, you're absolutely right. It must be so. Anything else from anyone? Thank you.
This kind of coming at it from a weird angle, but I heard one of the Swamis have a really good example about, you know, if you believe in past and the future, then where is the present? You know, where is that point? And then you say, well, I can't, there is no point. And so if there's only a present, then that means there is no past. And that you're if you have no story, you have no karma. And, you know, and then you really, you know, if you can really realize that your present is not really based on a story or a past, then you don't feel limited. You know, you lose that limitation.
Yes, and that's why you can say that karma is not personal. It has to do with the spacesuit, which has a story manifestly. It has at least a story of this lifetime, if not prior lifetime. But that's not a reality. That is an ephemeral thing. But you're absolutely right. You are not the prisoner of your karma. The karma is something that comes with this and is a creation of and is visited on this spacesuit. The less we identify with the spacesuit, with time, space, and causation, the mind, senses, and so on, the less we are affected by our karma. We become, in Holy Mother's words, pure as a star. Pure as a star. Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Okay.
Okay. Do you know why images of Krishna or Kali are 3.5 cubits high? Because of distance. Again, on account of distance, the sun appears to be small. But if you go near it, you will find the sun so big that you won't be able to comprehend it. Why have images of Krishna and Kali a dark blue color? That too is on account of distance, like the water of a lake, which appears green, blue, or black from a distance. Go near, take the water in the palm of your hand, and you will find that it has no color. The sky also appears blue from a distance. Go near, and you will see that it has no color at all. Therefore, I say that in the light of Vedantic reasoning, Brahman has no attributes. The real nature of Brahman cannot be described. But so long as your individuality is real, the world also is real. And equally real are the different forms of God and the feeling that God is a person. Yours is the path of bhakti. That is very good. It's an easy path. Who can fully know the infinite God? And what need is there of knowing the infinite? Having attained this rare human birth, my supreme need is to develop love for the lotus feet of God. If a jug of water is enough to remove my thirst, why should I measure the quantity of water in a lake? I become drunk on even half a bottle of wine. What is the use of my calculating the quantity of liquor in the tavern?
Mhm.
What need is there of knowing the infinite? The various states of mind of the Brahmajnani are described in the Vedas. The path of knowledge is extremely difficult. One cannot obtain jnana if one has the least trace of worldliness and the slightest attachment to women and gold. This is not the path for the Kali Yuga.
Notice how absolutely unqualified this statement is.
As long as we are
This
attached.
is not the path for the Kali Yuga, because it is virtually impossible not to have a trace of attachment. So this is why those attachments are transformed in the bhakti path and in the karma yoga path by offering those attachments and their results to the divine. This is what you do in the bhakti and karma paths, but especially in the bhakti path. Everything is thine, Lord. The bad, the good, the indifferent, the ugly, the transcendently beautiful, that which I can understand, that which I can't understand. All is thine. And so I offer it back to you with my love and my gratitude for there being existence itself, and for you having given me the gifts of the three graces in order to participate in it. The three graces. First grace is human birth, which was just mentioned. The second grace is this mumukshutvam, this yearning, this desire for freedom and freedom from the limitations of human birth. And the third are the gifts and the love of a qualified teacher that can introduce you to the way to freedom. So these are the great gifts that come from being human and pursuing your humanity to its fullest. Anything else from anyone? Read those last lines again.
Sure, Brother Shankara. The various states of mind of the Brahmajnani are described in the Vedas. The path of knowledge is extremely difficult. One cannot obtain jnana if one has the least trace of worldliness and the slightest attachment to women and gold. This is not the path for the Kali Yuga. Next, 7 planes of the mind. The Vedas speak of 7 planes where the mind dwells. When the mind is immersed in worldliness, it dwells in the 3 lower planes at the navel, the organ of generation, and the organ of evacuation. In that state, the mind loses all its higher visions. It broods only on women and gold. The fourth plane of the mind is at the heart. When the mind dwells there, one has the first glimpse of spiritual consciousness. One sees light all around. Such a man, perceiving the divine light, becomes speechless with wonder and says, what is this? What is this? His mind does not go downward to the objects of the world. The fifth plane of the mind is at the throat. When the mind reaches this, the aspirant becomes free from all ignorance and illusion. He does not enjoy talking or hearing about anything but God. If people talk about worldly things, he leaves the place at once. The sixth plane is at the forehead. When the mind reaches it, the aspirant sees the form of God day and night. But even then, a little trace of ego remains. At the sight of that incomparable beauty of God's form, one becomes intoxicated and rushes forth to touch and embrace it. But one doesn't succeed. It's like the light inside a lantern. One feels as if one could touch the light, but one cannot on account of the pane of glass. In the top of the head is the seventh plane. When the mind rises there, one goes into samadhi. Then the Brahmajnani directly perceives Brahman. But in that state, his body does not last many days. He remains unconscious of the outer world. If milk is poured into his mouth, it runs out. Dwelling on this plane of consciousness, he gives up his body in 21 days. That is the condition of the Brahmajnani. But yours is the path of devotion. That is a very good and easy path. Once a man said to me, "Sir, can you teach me quickly the thing you call samadhi?" I'll laugh. That's the end of that topic, which is 7 planes of the mind. Would you like me to read one more time of this, or?
Oh, no, it's quite all right.
Okay.
Notice that the mention of the Sahasrara,
Yes.
the topmost, which was mentioned earlier. There's no way of describing what happens there, because that which perceives the mind is left behind at the sixth. That trace of ego that gives rise to perception. There can be no perception if there isn't something to be perceived. So there's perceiver, perceived, and perception. These are the 3 ways of recognizing that there's some ego sense present. But when one rises to the 7th plane, even that is left behind. And so there's no recognition of the attributes of anything, because nothing has attributes at that point. Attributes are something that you notice and remark on. It isn't as if there are no attributes, it's just that you're not. I mean, Saguna Brahman is there, it's just that you're not seeing it, you're not noticing. So that's why that Brahma Jnani path is not the path for the Kali Yuga. Any other comments or questions while we're paused?
I love what one of the Swamis said that, actually, I think it was just kind of conclusion of an example Sarvadevananda gave, but basically, in order for you to say all is one, there has to be two.
Mhm.
And you
Very
can't
well
say all is one if there's one.
Yes. If you were in that state of oneness, who is there to notice anything other than that? There is no noticing of anything. I mean, it is absolutely incomprehensible and indefinable for us. We can point to it, but we don't know what it is to be in that state of total unity, oneness. Well, we know it because we get there accidentally from time to time. And then as we do our spiritual practice, we may get there a bit more often, not so accidentally, but we don't know what produces it or why it happens. We simply stop breathing and we stop noticing time passing. And thoughts are very far apart. All very welcome and all very uplifting and regenerative.
I heard something interesting I'd never thought about, that we experience time basically at the speed of our thoughts. So if we're in that samadhi and our thoughts stop, then time stops.
Exactly.
Whereas really time only comes with the function of the mind.
Precisely. Which is why we say, time flies when you're having a good time and time drags when you're bored. If the thoughts are desultory and draggy and boredom, time seems to go on forever. If you're having great fun with friends and there's an hour and a half will fly by and you think, really, it's an hour and a half already? Anyway, you're just quite right. Time is a construct. It's all of everything that we experience is a construct of the mind, if you do the logic. Thanks, Bhagavan Das. Anything else from anyone? Okay.
Okay.
So it's when your consciousness reaches the seventh plane or seventh chakra, that the body would fall away after 21 days. Is that what Ramakrishna said?
Yes. For most people. Some people, it drops away right away. For most people, and I'm talking 99 point something percent, the most it will last is 21 days. There are a few that Sri Ramakrishna says are given the gift of the ego of wisdom or the ego of love. This thin, he characterizes it as a silver thread of ego of wisdom or of love. Why? So that they can remain as a teacher. Otherwise, there would be no teachers. So all of the teachers have this in common. They have been to that state of being. They have returned. They can't tell us about that state of being. Sri Ramakrishna tried, brought himself to tears, trying to tell his young disciples about it. But finally, he gave up entirely and just said, "Oh, one by one, I'll give it to you." And he did that. Gave them the experience so that they would have an understanding of what it was. and so that he could further instruct them and give them their missions. But yes, there's no way of most people holding onto the body after having been to the seventh plane of consciousness. Well observed.
If you go, you can Google it, or you can see the video. But this past year, Lama Yesh or Lama Zopa decided to leave the body and went into clear light meditation, which would be the same as Nirvikalpa Samadhi to us, to where his body is lifeless and just stays there. Of course, he would never return, but it can stay like that for the better part of a month. And that just happened and was recorded this last year. If you Google Lama Zopa clear light meditation, you can see it.
Yep, there's more and more of this kind of material becoming accessible to us, so that we can be persuaded so more and more people can be persuaded that there's something worthwhile in this direction. Because the world as we know it is clearly coming to an end. We do not want to be part of the world that is emerging, at least for the next 1,000 years or so, as the Kali Yuga comes to its end. It's going to get uglier and uglier, according to everything we're told. And certainly all the portents seem to be that way. At the same time, the golden age is beginning, and there are many portents of that as well. But in any event, it won't make that much difference to most of us. We're not going to be around that much longer. Anything else from anyone? How are we doing for time?
We have about 13 minutes still.
Okay.
Shankara, we
Good.
can do
Excellent.
some more.
Let's go. Let's go
Okay.
ahead.
Next topic is duties drop away with the deepening of spiritual mood. After a man has attained samadhi, all his actions drop away. All devotional activities such as worship, japa, and the like, as well as all worldly duties, cease to exist for such a person. At the beginning, there is much ado about work. As a man makes progress toward God, the outer display of his work becomes less and less, so much so that he cannot even sing the name and glories of God. To Shivanath, he's addressing, as long as you were not here at the meeting, people talked a great deal about you and discussed your virtues. But no sooner did you arrive here than all that stopped. Now the very sight of you makes everyone happy. People now simply say, here is Shivanath Babu. All other talk about you has stopped. What happens after Samadhi? That's the topic now. After attaining Samadhi, I once went to the Ganges to perform tarpan. But as I took water in the palm of my hand, it trickled down through my fingers. Weeping, I said to Haladari, "Cousin, what is this?" Haladari replied, "It is called Galitak Hasta in the holy books." After the vision of God, such duties as the performance of tarpan drop away. In the kirtan, the devotee first swings, Nitai Amar Mata Hati. As the devotional mood deepens, he simply sings Hati Hati. Next, all he can sing is Hati. And last of all, he simply sings ha and goes into samadhi. The man who has been singing all the while then becomes speechless.
Mhm.
Again, at a feast given to the Brahmins, one at first hears much noise of talking. When the guests sit on the floor with leaf plates in front of them, much of the noise ceases. Then one hears only the cry, "Bring some luchi." As they partake of the luchi and other dishes, 3/4 of the noise subsides.
Mhm.
When the curd, the last course, appears, one hears only the sound soup soup as the guests eat the curd with their fingers. Then there's practically no noise. Afterwards, all retire to sleep and absolute silence reigns. Therefore, I say, at the beginning of religious life, a man makes much ado about work.
That word is produced.
Ado?
Ado.
Ado? Okay.
ADO is pronounced ado.
Ado, ADO. Therefore, I say, at the beginning of religious life, a man makes much ado about work, but as his mind dives deeper into God, he becomes less active. Last of all comes the renunciation of work, followed by samadhi. Generally, the body does not remain alive after the attainment of samadhi. The only exceptions are such sages as Narada, who keep their bodies alive in order to bring spiritual light to others. It is also true of divine incarnations like Chaitanya. After the well is dug, one generally throws away the spade and the basket, but some keep them. In order to help their neighbors, but some keep them in order to help their neighbors. The great souls who retain their bodies after samadhi feel compassion for the suffering of others. They are not so selfish as to be satisfied with their own illumination. You are well aware of the nature of selfish people. If you ask them to spit at a particular place, they won't, lest it should do you good.
Mhm.
If you ask them to bring a sweetmeat worth a cent from the store, they will perhaps lick it on the way back or laugh. But the manifestations of divine power are different in different beings. Ordinary souls are afraid to teach others. A piece of worthless timber may itself somehow float across the water, but it sinks even under the weight of a bird. Sages like Narada are like a heavy log of wood, which not only floats on the water, but also can carry men, cows, and even elephants. To Shivanath and the other Brahmo devotees, can you tell me why you dwell so much on the powers and glories of God? I asked the same thing of Keshav-san. One day, Keshav and his party came to the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. I told them I wanted to hear how they lectured. A meeting was arranged in the paved courtyard above the bathing ghat on the Ganges, where Keshav gave a talk. He spoke very well. I went into a trance. After the lecture, I said to Keshav, "Why do you so often say such things as, 'Oh God, what beautiful flowers thou hast made. O God, thou hast created the heavens, the stars, and the ocean,' and so on?" Those who love splendor themselves are fond of dwelling on God's splendor. Once a thief stole the jewels from the images in the temple of Radhakanta. Madhur Babu entered the temple and said to the deity, "What a shame, O God, you couldn't save your own ornaments." The idea, I said to Madhur, does he who has Lakshmi for his handmaid and attendant ever lack any splendor? Those jewels may be precious to you, but to God, they are no better than lumps of clay. Shame on you. You shouldn't have spoken so meanly. What riches can you give to God to magnify his glory? Therefore, I say, a man seeks the person in whom he finds joy. What need has he to ask where the person lives, the number of his houses, gardens, relatives, and servants, or the amount of his wealth? I forget everything when I see Narendra. Never even unwittingly have I asked him where he lived, what his father's profession was, or the number of his brothers. Dive deep in the sweetness of God's bliss. What need have we of his infinite creation and unlimited glory? Then the master sang, "Dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. Go seek, O mind, go seek Vrindavan in your heart, where with his loving devotees Sri Krishna sports eternally. Light up, O mind, light up true wisdom's shining lamp, and let it burn with a steady flame unceasingly within your heart. Who is it that steers your boat across the solid earth? It is your Guru, says Kubir. Meditate on his holy feet." Sri Ramakrishna continued, "It is also true that after the vision of God, the devotee desires to witness his Leela. After the destruction of Ravana at Rama's hands, Nikasha, Ravana's mother, began to run away for fear of her life. Lakshmana said to Rama, "Revered brother, please explain this strange thing to me. This Nikasha is an old woman who has suffered a great deal from the loss of her many sons. And yet she is so afraid of losing her own life, and she is taking to her heels." Rama bade her come near, gave her assurance of safety, and asked her why she was running away. Nikasha answered, "O Rama, I am able to witness all this Leela of yours because I'm still alive. I want to live longer so that I may see the many more things you will do on this earth." All laugh. To Shivanath, "I like to see you. How can I live unless I see pure soul devotees? I feel as if they had been my friends in a former incarnation." That's the end of the topic, Brother Shankara. We only have 1 minute. If you have any comments or
Well, I think that's a perfect,
panel has any comments, I think I will stop there. That's a good stopping point.
yes. Well, as always, we're being narrated the highest wisdom in a form that is we're able to receive and assimilate. Usually we only get part of it on the first reading, which is a reason to go back and read the gospel over and over again, because there's so much there. But even at these first readings, we're getting so much wonderful instruction and encouragement, and the invitation to go forward with this. And so may you all be well and in bright spirits. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may the divine being who is introduced to us as mother and father at the opening prayer for these sessions, may we know that that mother and father being holds us in a loving and secure embrace. We may rely on that according to all of the scriptures, that God is ever looking after us as a mother and father, supporting and nourishing us as a mother and father. So until tomorrow night, for those of you who wish to join us, tomorrow night we'll study the book Realizing God. And then on Saturday, we'll continue our study of Christ the Messenger with Jeff Sowlich and it's Swami Vivekananda's talk. And then on Sunday, the topic for Sunday's talk is a heart attack machine. A heart attack machine. It's a line from a Bob Dylan song. Of course, it will be put in context and explained. So any final thought or words of love from anyone?
I have one question, Brother Shankara. We are very close to finishing Christ the Messenger. What is the next book so we can order if I don't have it? I can order the book. I was just wondering what book we will be starting. It should be in a week or two, we will be closing the Christ the Messenger.
Let me give it some thought, but my first thought is we'll either go back. Well, I think we'll read Practical Vedanta by Swami Vivekananda.
Okay.
That is such a powerful book.
Is it?
It is
Practical Vedanta.
Practical Vedanta. It's a collection of talks.
Collection of Swami's talks. I think I have it. I'll look at it. Collection of Swami's talks.
Yeah, well, it's in a complete works report.
Yeah.
Practical Vedanta. But
You probably have it, Hyma, because that was one of the required readings to get my mantra diksha from Swami Yogishananda.
Okay.
So if anyone else has any suggestion.
There is a book, The Yoga of Jesus also is there, Christ the Messenger. And then there are books about Yoga of Jesus, Sermon on the Mount. You know, there are quite a few.
Sermon on the Mount, according to Vedanta, would be a good one to read.
Yeah.
What about imitating Christ?
Imitating Christ.
Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. Well, that isn't a Ramakrishna order text, but it certainly is one that Swami Vivekananda studied. We could consider that. Now I tell you, that is one profound book. It was not meant to be studied by the layperson.
Wow.
Thomas à Kempis's book. It was meant for other monastics, and not just monastics, but advanced monastics. So let me give that some thought, dear.
Yeah.
Thomas à Kempis's book was one of the two books that Swami Vivekananda carried with him when he wandered north and south, east and west in India. He carried a copy of the Gita, and he carried a copy of Thomas à Kempis.
Okay.
And he was still studying it until the end of his days. Thomas à Kempis was apparently far more than most of us. I really don't know much about Thomas à Kempis at all. But thanks for the suggestion.
Okay.
My tendency of those books that have been mentioned, I think the Sermon on the Mount, according to Vedanta, would
Oh,
be-
Sermon on the Mount. Okay.
that would be a good one to take up. You all think about that and see what you think. Those of you who come to the Saturday class,
Yeah.
you make yourselves known. I don't want to be the dictator about this. I want us to be studying a book that you wish to make your own.
Since we are reading Christ the Messenger, Sermon on the Mount seems like carrying that to next level for our knowledge. Some of us,
Well,
Christ's
I
knowledge.
don't know if it's the next level. They're just two very parallel ways of looking at Christ.
I read this.
Christ the messenger is as we wind it up, you'll see it talks about you as Christ the messenger, that your destiny is to become a Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. Well, until next time then,
We'll see you tomorrow.
and we'll be together again tomorrow evening, Mother willing. And a great good night to all of you.
Good night.